I thought I don't need to explain subgrid, but looks like I need to explain a little bit. Okay, so one of the things, can you see the screen, or is it? Can see? Can? Stop flickering? Stop flickering. Okay, can. So what happens is subgrid is one of the things that I want support for when CSS Grid landed, but unfortunately it didn't. We didn't get the support. So what subgrid is, for example, just look at this image. It makes things very, very clear. Usually when we create a design, right, we take like 10, 12 columns and smack it right at the design. And then we try to fill elements into each of these smaller grids. Like for example, this thing called AG2 takes up the middle 6 columns. The AG1 takes up 2 columns, for example. What subgrid does is it allows you to contain grids within a grid, so like nested grids. So AG4 and AG5 are within AG2, right? But in the current version of CSS Grid, you have to define a new grid for AG2 in order to use your current grid. So in AG2, what you need to do is grid template column, 6 columns, and then grid column get, whatever that was before. So you have to write a lot of template code just to create that nested grid functionality. So what I thought was, hey, since you can write that template code over and over and over again, why not create a SASS mixin to automate the hell out of it so you don't have to do it, right? Here is the mixin that I came up with. Okay, let me do this. This is the mixin that I came up with. Can see? Yeah? I'm not going to explain the mixin much, but let's figure out how to use it. So when I started playing with layouts, right, one of the exercises that I liked doing is to try building this 10-column complex nested AG grid test thingy. So this is what I started out with. If you can build something like this very quickly with your CSS Grid, you probably don't have to worry about layouts anymore, so you can ditch Bootstrap and forget the hell out of it. Okay, so we are going to build this thing together right now and see how the subgrid thing works. So I actually have some code over here. I'm going to comment it out. In case I forget, like not going to delete it away. So what happens? Okay, let me comment this out as well. Okay. So this is what happens when you have CSS Grid, when you lay out a component, right? All the things stacked in one column. For the grid to work, so let's go back to this thing. For this grid to work, you want to put your HTML elements in such a way where it sort of makes sense for the grid. So if you segment this out, AG1 will be one thing on its own. AG2 and everything in there will be a separate div. AG3 will be a separate div. So this is how the HTML looks like. Okay, AG1, then AG2 is like one whole big chunk of thing, then AG3. Okay, so this is how it works. So what we want to do is to first style AG1, 2, and 3, right? But before that, you need to style the container to create the grid. So container, display, grid, which is basically the thing you need to do. Grid template columns. Since we have 10 rows of equal stuff, we can do a repeat 10 1FR. So we're just going to do that. And once you do that, you can go under, what's that thing? Okay. You can go and find your container. There's going to be this grid thing, which tells you very, very nicely that you're using grid. Then if you click on the waffle here, you will see your grid. So you can count, there's going to be 10 columns. Right? Then to create some gaps in between, right, you can use this thing called grid gap. Charlene was talking about it, and then I think there's a video for this. Can you link it? Can you link the video somehow later? So ask Hui Qing to link the video. Okay. So basically, you can do like a grid gap, and then you can create gaps between your stuff. So that's how you create a grid. Now, next, we want to position AG1, 2, and 3, right? So AG1 is 2 columns. We can say grid, column, span 2. That means 2 columns. So grid 1 becomes 2 columns and everything stacks forward. AG2 is, okay, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 columns. So span 6. And then we got 6 columns there. So AG3 is also 2 columns, so I'm just going to do this. Oh, 3. Yep. Okay, so we have that initial thing right at the start. Now this is where it gets a little bit interesting, because if you want to do AG4 and 5, we kind of need to set AG2 in a way. We kind of need to redefine the grid for AG2. So what we have to do is display grid, template, columns, repeat, 6, 1FR, grid, gap, 1EM. See how I'm repeating this thing? Sort of like repeating this thing over here. So this is what we have to do to set the AG2 to this grid container. Once we do this, we can do like AG4, which is going to be 3 columns, grid, column, span 3. Then here, 3 columns, right? AG5 is also going to be 3 columns, so span 3 together, bam. So this is what you need to do to have that fake nested grid lah. But what I did with this is you can remove all of this and say include Faux subgrid 6. Bam, it's the same thing. So whatever that I just did, it basically does the same with this mix-in. So 1 line instead of 4 lines. That's basically what the mix-in does. Right? Moving on. So what we want to do is, okay, AG6 is 2 columns. Okay, and then AG7 is 4 columns. Right, and then we want to say, okay, AG7 now is 4 columns, but there are some stuff inside that we want to do a grid for, a nested grid for. So we use include subgrid again and say 4. So basically it kind of feels the same, except you see the inner things became grid items already. Grid items automatically take out 1 column, so you see AG8, 9, and 10 as 1 columns. Then AG8 and AG9 are 2 columns, right? So grid, I think you must be so bored with me over here. Span 2. And one final trick for spanning the entire thing is to set AG10, grid, column, start 1 / n - 1. So that's like span the full column. It's not doing. Oh, okay. Colon. Okay, bam. So this is how you can use this thing. Now, what if you don't have this AG6 over here, and you kind of need to move AG7 a little bit to the right? What happens, right? So you can say grid, column, I think it was start. I cannot remember, but I think it's start. You can say 2. So it shifts. This will be start at the second column, which is what it's doing now. You can say 3, and then it poops a little bit to the right. No, it doesn't. Column. Yes. Okay, so that's the Faux subgrid mix-in that I created to help you with nested grids. That's it. Okay. This is open source. Link. Okay, easy. Google Zell. Faux subgrid, of course, and then there you get the entire freaking blog post explaining what I just said. Okay, can.
All the links are we'll link in the meetup page and like Facebook and other social media things. Okay, fine, Twitter. Okay, so the last person is another person that kena strong arm by me. Any questions for Zell first?
Yeah.
I love questions. You never bring chocolate, I can throw at me. Throw the box at me.
The stack one on top of each other. They automatically stack horizontally, right?
No. When I first laid out the grid, I didn't say display grid. So it's display block, which is why everything got stacked like that. But once I do display grid, it stacks like that.
Question. How easy is it to override the faux subgrid if you should need to? Say at a certain breakpoint, your grid changes and you no longer need it to be in a faux subgrid.
Well, put it in a breakpoint. You know, like if you use CSS, media, whatever, this is SAS syntax. Okay, if you use CSS, okay. If you use CSS, media, min, width, and say 600 pixels. You can do this thing over here. No.
Yeah, my question though is because I use mobile first, so smaller widths and then expand and override. If I've already got the faux subgrids applied, how do I get rid of it?
Well, if you do that, maybe one of the ways is to restrict your media queries such that it becomes like if it's.
So there's no easy way to override them.
There is. If you don't need it, you can just say display block. Otherwise, just override your grid column, and that's it.
No, Rachel and Ru wrote this overriding. I'll just toss it in the links.
Yeah, you just toss in the link. I cannot. I don't have that use case.
Hashtag lazy.
Yes, I don't have that use case
Now you have the
myself.
use case. So now.
When I get to it, I'll think about it. I don't have a good answer.
If you think of any questions, can go and bombard them one. They are like, semi-fun employed people. So yeah, go ahead, bombard them.
I am totally
with
fun
questions.
employed people, please.
Anyway, the last speaker of the night is